Hey friends, how's it going? The film is based on true events, and it opens with a disturbing 911 call. While a woman is speaking to the operator, a gunshot suddenly goes off in the background, and moments later, the call ends with her death. The movie then shows the aftermath. The woman's body is lying on the floor, her husband is dead as well, and the walls are covered in blood. The next morning, we meet our main character, Kevin, who works for a crime scene cleanup company. As it turns out, his team has been hired to clean the very house we just saw. After finishing the job, Kevin and his coworkers head outside, but some of them start making insensitive jokes about the murder-suicide that happened there. Unfortunately, the victims' family members overhear the conversation, and one of them immediately calls the group out for being disrespectful. We then meet Kevin's wife, Natalie, who works as a designer. While she's at work, she gets a call from her sister, Danny, who shares some exciting news. They finally found an investor who could help take their small business to the next level. Natalie is thrilled and later tells Kevin about it. That night, the two spend some time together, and things seem to be going well. They start getting intimate, but Kevin suddenly pulls away and the mood changes. This is where we learn that their marriage is still struggling because Natalie had an affair in the past, and Kevin hasn't fully recovered from the betrayal. Hoping to fix their relationship, the couple attends marriage counseling. During the session, the counselor tells them that their old marriage is essentially over, and that if they truly want a fresh start, they need to build something new together. She even suggests moving to a completely different home and starting over from scratch. A few months later, Natalie is talking with her sister Donnie, and through their conversation, we learn a bit more about what happened in her marriage. Apparently, Natalie ended up having an affair during a time when Kevin was emotionally distant and consumed by grief after his brother's suicide. Not long after, Kevin stops by to see her. Danny excuses herself, saying she has work to do, and leaves the couple alone. Kevin then tells Natalie that he's found a house they could buy. The problem is that it's the same house he cleaned at the beginning of the movie, the one where the murder-suicide took place. Natalie is immediately against the idea. She's upset that Kevin discussed buying a house without consulting her first, and she makes it clear that she has no interest in living somewhere with such a disturbing history. The conversation quickly turns into an argument, and Kevin fires back by saying he doesn't want to keep sleeping in a bed that constantly reminds him of her affair. Later that night, however, Natalie approaches Kevin and tells him she's changed her mind. The next day, the two meet with Claudia, a relative of the previous homeowners. Since money is tight, they ask if she'd be willing to lower the asking price. Claudia eventually agrees, admitting that she's been trying to sell the property for months, but nobody wants to buy a house connected to such a tragic incident. While Claudia is willing to make the deal, her husband Robert clearly doesn't seem happy about the decision. Before long, it's moving day. Natalie and Kevin begin settling into their new home, and Danny comes by to help carry some boxes inside. She can't help but point out how creepy the place feels, especially knowing what happened there only a few months earlier. Not long after, Natalie's dog, ODI, suddenly starts barking at a closet downstairs. Curious, Natalie and Danny go to investigate. Natalie opens the closet but doesn't find anything unusual inside. The only thing that catches her attention is a dent in the wall. Given the house's history, it's likely connected to the previous owner's wife, who reportedly hid in that same closet before being found and killed by her husband on the night of the murder-suicide. Later that night, ODI suddenly wakes Kevin and Natalie. Kevin gets up and tries to take the dog outside, but ODI refuses to follow him upstairs. Instead, he just stands there staring, almost as if he's looking at something that isn't there. A little annoyed, Kevin eventually gives up and heads back to bed. When he gets to the bedroom, he notices that the thermostat has somehow been turned down. He adjusts it and climbs back into bed, only to find Natalie giving him a confused look. She tells him that just a few moments earlier, she saw someone walk into their bedroom and head straight into the bathroom. Naturally, she assumed it was Kevin. The problem is that Kevin had been downstairs the whole time and had only just come back upstairs. Kevin checks the bathroom, but there's nobody there. He tells Natalie not to worry and suggests that she probably imagined it because she was half asleep. The next morning, Kevin receives a porn magazine in the mail. Confused, he calls the company to tell them there must be some mistake since he never ordered it. However, the representative informs him that the subscription was placed using his name and address. At the same time, Natalie is dealing with her own problem. She has an important meeting with the investor later that day, but she can't find her car keys anywhere. She's certain she left them on her work desk, yet they've completely disappeared. Kevin helps her search the house and, oddly enough, finds the keys almost immediately. Relieved, Natalie heads off to her meeting. Meanwhile, Kevin has recently decided to return to college as part of the fresh start he and Natalie are trying to build together. That day, he attends one of his classes, where the professor assigns a group project and asks everyone to find a partner. As the students begin pairing up, a classmate named Avery catches Kevin's attention and gestures for him to join her. The two end up becoming partners for the project. Later that night, Kevin puts together a small surprise for Natalie to celebrate her big business opportunity. Natalie is touched by the gesture, and the two spend some quality time together. For the first time in a while, it feels like Kevin is finally embracing the fresh start they've been trying to build. But much later that night, Natalie suddenly wakes up feeling freezing cold. She checks the thermostat and is shocked to see that it's been turned all the way down to 31 degrees. She heads downstairs to grab a drink, but while she's there, she hears music playing from another room. Curious, she follows the sound and finds a music player running on its own. She turns it off, but as she's about to leave, the closet door behind her slowly starts opening by itself. A little unsettled, Natalie closes the door and starts walking away. Seconds later, it swings open again. This time, she takes a deep breath, shuts it once more, and decides not to think too much about it. She returns upstairs and gets back into bed. Kevin tells her how much he enjoyed their evening together and admits that he's missed being close to her. The next morning, things seem much better between them. They share a kiss, and for the first time in a long while, their relationship appears to be heading in the right direction. That moment is interrupted by the doorbell. When Kevin answers it, he's surprised to find a massive box filled with porn magazines, all supposedly ordered under his name. Later that day, Natalie is home alone and talking to her sister on the phone. During the conversation, Danny unexpectedly tells her that their mother is coming to town and wants to have dinner with both Natalie and Kevin. While they're talking, Natalie tosses a ball for ODI to fetch. The ball rolls underneath the bed, but for some reason, I can't seem to reach it. Natalie gets down and tries to grab it herself, but it's too far back. She eventually goes to get a broom so she can pull it out. However, when she returns a moment later, she finds the ball sitting right on top of the bed. Confused, Natalie checks under the bed but finds nothing, so she simply brushes it off. Afterward, Natalie attends another business meeting where she runs into Nick, the man she previously had an affair with. She soon learns that Nick is actually a partner of Anne, the investor she's been trying to make a deal with. Natalie is upset and says she can't work with him, but Nick explains that Anne genuinely likes her work and that he only helped connect them. Realizing this may be her only chance, Natalie reluctantly agrees to move forward with the meeting. Later that night, Kevin is at Avery's place, working on their class project, while Natalie is home asleep. In the middle of the night, Natalie wakes up to find the room freezing cold again. She notices the bedroom door standing wide open. Then she sees what looks like a hand crawling across the floor. Startled, she quickly turns on the lights, but the hand is gone. Natalie gets out of bed and slowly walks toward the open doorway. Just as she reaches it, someone suddenly grabs her from behind. Later that night, Kevin returns home and finds Natalie asleep on the living room couch. Natalie says she doesn't remember how or why she ended up sleeping there. She also tries to tell Kevin about seeing someone outside their bedroom, but Kevin doesn't believe her. The conversation quickly turns into another argument. The next morning, the two bring the issue up during a session with their marriage counselor. Kevin insists that Natalie may be experiencing paranoid hallucinations. On the drive home, however, they manage to make up. Kevin doesn't want them fighting when they're supposed to have dinner with Natalie's mother later that day. While Kevin and Natalie are away at counseling, Danny stops by the house to feed ODI. As she's relaxing inside, she suddenly hears ODI barking downstairs. A few moments later, the barking turns into whining. Worried, Danny goes to check on him. While looking around, she notices a sink slowly running on its own. She turns it off and continues searching until she finds ODI curled up on the couch. Just as Danny is about to head back upstairs, she hears the sink running again. Confused, she goes back into the kitchen and finds that the water has somehow turned back on. A moment later, she hears footsteps coming from upstairs. Then, without warning, the power goes out. Danny grabs a flashlight and heads upstairs to investigate. While searching the house, she suddenly hears her phone ringing from inside a bedroom. She goes into the room but can't seem to find the phone anywhere. Then she hears heavy footsteps running toward the bedroom. Panicking, Danny quickly shuts the door. She then slips out through another door into the hallway and closes it behind her. But moments later, the doorknob starts moving on its own. Now completely terrified, Danny hides inside a closet. However, before she can do anything else, something suddenly grabs her and pulls her away. Later, Natalie and Kevin return home, and Natalie is furious when she realizes Danny is nowhere to be found. The two then get ready for dinner with Natalie's mother, but throughout the evening, Natalie keeps angrily texting Danny, demanding to know where she is. The evening only gets worse when Natalie's narcissistic mother starts provoking her, eventually leading to a heated argument between the two. In the middle of all this, they suddenly hear a loud noise outside. When they go to check, they discover that someone has burned their car down while shouting that they're not welcome there. The next morning, a detective named Richardson comes to speak with them. He explains that the people responsible were a group of teenagers. Apparently, they were enraged after seeing a social media account linked to Kevin and Natalie's home address posting messages that recruited white supremacists. Kevin immediately denies having anything to do with it and insists that someone must be trying to sabotage them. Richardson doesn't press the issue. Instead, he tells them to keep an eye out for anything unusual and to let him know if they notice something suspicious. The next day, Kevin spends some time at a dog park with Avery and ODI, while Natalie goes to visit Claudia. Wanting answers, Natalie asks Claudia what really happened in the house before she and Kevin moved in. Claudia explains that her brother Jay and his wife Erin had been struggling with their marriage. Erin had discovered that Jay was cheating on her, so she eventually started having an affair of her own. According to Claudia, Jay's affairs were purely physical, but Erin ended up falling in love with a mysterious man that nobody seemed to know anything about. She goes on to explain that Erin had designed the entire house from the ground up, while Jay paid for everything without ever questioning her. Despite all their problems, Jay still loved Erin, and the two were actively trying to repair their marriage. Claudia also reveals that she doesn't believe the official police report. Even though the case was ruled a murder-suicide, she's convinced her brother never killed his wife and never took his own life. One reason she finds the whole thing suspicious is that all of the home security cameras stopped working on the day of the incident. As Claudia is telling the story, her husband Robert can be seen listening to the conversation from the other room. Meanwhile, back at the dog park, ODI suddenly starts acting sick. When Natalie finally leaves Claudia's house, Robert steps outside and approaches her. He offers to buy the house back if she and Kevin are having problems with it, but Natalie immediately turns him down. That response seems to anger Robert. He accuses Natalie and Kevin of taking advantage of Claudia while she wasn't in the right state of mind. According to him, the house was the only thing Jay left behind for his sister, and he believes Natalie and Kevin practically took it from her for nothing. Suddenly, Natalie receives a phone call about ODI and immediately rushes to the vet. There, the veterinarian gives them some heartbreaking news. Odie's heart is failing because he apparently ingested some kind of toxin. The news hits both of them hard, and they spend some time grieving for their dog. When they return home, they find a bouquet of flowers waiting for Natalie. Unfortunately, the flowers are from Nick. Seeing no way around it, Natalie finally tells Kevin that she'll be working with Nick because of the business deal. Kevin is immediately upset. The conversation quickly turns into an argument, with Kevin accusing her of choosing her work with Nick over his feelings and their marriage. Natalie insists that it's strictly business, and that she doesn't really have a choice, but Kevin isn't convinced. That night, the couple is awakened by noises coming from outside their bedroom. They rush downstairs to investigate, but don't find anyone. The next day, they report the incident to Detective Richardson. However, since nobody actually saw who was responsible, there isn't much he can do. Natalie then starts telling him about all the strange things she's experienced in the house so far, but Richardson doesn't seem particularly concerned by any of it. After the detective leaves, Kevin and Natalie end up arguing once again. Kevin still believes Natalie has been imagining most of these incidents and insists she was probably delirious. Natalie begs him to install security cameras around the house so they can finally find out what's going on. Eventually, Kevin gives in and installs them the following day. Around the same time, Natalie finally receives a reply from Danny. The message is short and simply says she's sorry and needed to get away for a while. Strangely, Natalie doesn't even try to find out where Donnie is, or whether she's okay. Later, Natalie gets scolded by Anne for failing to deliver a rack sample on time. After explaining everything that's been happening, she manages to convince Anne to give her a 1-week extension. Meanwhile, Kevin suddenly starts feeling sick while at work and ends up throwing up. That evening, Natalie decides to call Nick and tells him to stop sending her flowers. To her surprise, Nick seems genuinely confused and claims he never sent any flowers at all. Wanting to prove it, Natalie goes to send him a photo of the card that came with the bouquet. But while scrolling through her phone, she discovers several photos of herself sleeping. Before she can process that, a record player suddenly starts playing on its own. Natalie rushes over and turns it off, but then she hears rustling noises coming from outside the house. Alarmed, she immediately calls 911 and asks for officers to be sent over. A few moments later, however, she realizes the noise is simply coming from a tree branch hitting the window whenever the wind blows. Relieved, she apologizes for the misunderstanding and hangs up. But just then, a figure suddenly appears and starts chasing her. Natalie runs upstairs, locks herself inside the bedroom, and calls 911 again. However, when she turns around, she finds the figure somehow inside the room with her. With nowhere else to go, Natalie rushes out onto the balcony and starts climbing over the railing. But she loses her footing and falls into the swimming pool below. At that moment, Kevin arrives home and rushes to help her. Paramedics are called to the scene, and another report is filed with Detective Richardson. Unfortunately, the detective is still unable to determine who the intruder was. The following day, Kevin is called down to the police station. There, Richardson shows him the security footage from the previous night. The footage doesn't show any sign of another person in the house. The only person seen on camera is Natalie, running through the house in a panic. Based on the footage, the police conclude that Natalie was suffering from some kind of delusion and that no one else was actually there that night. Later, during another counseling session, Kevin confronts Natalie about what happened. Natalie continues to insist that she's not delusional and suggests that they should just sell the house back to Claudia and Robert. Kevin immediately rejects the idea. He scolds Natalie for bothering Claudia and Robert about the house being haunted, especially considering that their family was murdered there. Natalie fires back, accusing Kevin of caring more about everyone else's feelings than hers. That comment clearly hits a nerve. After the session, as the two are walking away, Kevin suddenly collapses. Natalie rushes him to a doctor, where they receive some disturbing news. The doctor explains that tests found traces of nerium in Kevin's bloodstream. According to her, small doses taken over a long period of time can cause symptoms such as vomiting, muscle weakness, seizures, and even cardiac arrest. The doctor says Kevin has been slowly poisoned over time. As a result, suspicion immediately falls on Natalie. Later, Detective Richardson confronts her about it and accuses her of poisoning her own husband. He believes her motive may have been to get back together with Nick, the man she previously had an affair with. When Kevin is well enough to return home, he starts wondering if Natalie really poisoned him and refuses to take the meal she made. Instead, he grabs a banana and heads to work. Later that evening, a strange man shows up at the house carrying a bouquet of flowers. He tells Natalie that she's a beautiful woman, but when she tries to shut the door, the man suddenly attacks her. Terrified, Natalie grabs a pair of scissors lying nearby and stabs him. The next scene shows Natalie and Kevin sitting with Detective Richardson as he explains everything he's uncovered so far. It turns out Robert was the one behind several of the incidents. He hired the strange man to go to their house, and he was also responsible for ordering all those magazine subscriptions in Kevin's name. His goal was to scare Kevin and Natalie into moving out, so he could buy the house back. However, Robert insists that he never entered the house himself, and claims he had nothing to do with the other strange things that have been happening there. That night, after returning home, Natalie points out how much they've been fighting lately, and suggests that maybe they should spend some time apart. Kevin doesn't respond. Instead, the two go to bed with the tension still hanging between them. The next morning, Natalie wakes up to find that Kevin has already left for college. While he's there, he receives a text from Natalie telling him not to come home that night. Later that evening, Kevin is with Avery working on their college project when Natalie tries calling him. He doesn't answer, so she leaves him a voice message instead. In the message, Natalie tells him that she misses him and that she didn't mean what she said the night before. Now confused, Kevin starts wondering whether he should go home after all. Avery sees that he's conflicted and suggests that he should just go home. After sending the voice message, Natalie decides to relax with a bath. Meanwhile, Kevin changes his mind and calls her, saying he's heading home. Natalie is surprised and asks where he's been all day. Kevin doesn't understand the question because, as far as he knows, she's the one who told him not to come home. Earlier, he received a text from her saying exactly that. Natalie immediately denies sending any message like that. When Kevin sends her a screenshot of the conversation, she starts getting uneasy. Wanting answers, Natalie pulls up the security footage from their bedroom. As she watches the footage, she finally sees what's been happening. Shortly after Kevin leaves for college that morning, a creepy figure crawls out from under the bed and texts Kevin using her phone. Then, when Natalie wakes up, it quietly slips back underneath the bed. Horrified, Natalie keeps watching the footage, but then the closet door behind her suddenly swings open. Before she can react, the same figure grabs her from behind. Natalie eventually wakes up in the basement with her hands chained up. As she looks around, she finds herself surrounded by photos of Aaron with the man she had been having an affair with. Mixed in with them are gruesome pictures of Aaron's dead body, along with several photos where her husband's face has been crossed out. While Natalie struggles to free herself, she notices a creepy figure moving around nearby. After a while, the figure finally steps into view and reveals himself to be Otto. Aaron's former lover. At that point, Natalie realizes he's been living in the basement all along. Aaron had apparently brought him there and kept him locked up until he eventually lost his mind. Then, after finally escaping, Otto murdered both Aaron and her husband. A moment later, Otto tries to sedate Natalie with a syringe. Thinking quickly, Natalie calms him down and says she just wants to talk. She tells him that he truly loved Aaron, yet despite everything, Aaron still chose someone else. Natalie goes on to say that what Aaron did to him was horrible, and that he never deserved to be treated that way. Her words seem to get through to him. Otto smiles and even starts kissing her. But that doesn't last long. While looking at the security camera feed, Otto suddenly notices that Kevin has returned home, and his mood changes instantly. Realizing Kevin is now in danger, Natalie tries to manipulate Otto. She tells him that Kevin doesn't love her anymore, and even suggests that he should kill him so the two of them can stay together. Otto doesn't fall for it. Instead, he gags Natalie's mouth and heads upstairs through the vents with a syringe in hand. Meanwhile, Kevin arrives home and starts looking around for Natalie. He checks different rooms, including the bathroom, but there's no sign of her. At the same time, Natalie desperately keeps trying to break free from her restraints. Back upstairs, Kevin notices someone lying in bed. Assuming it's Natalie, he climbs in beside her after spotting a lock of dark hair. But then he realizes something is horribly wrong. The person in the bed isn't Natalie at all. It's Danny's severed head. And in his shock, Kevin fails to notice the figure standing right behind him. Meanwhile, Natalie manages to free herself and starts screaming Kevin's name from the basement. Hearing her voice, Kevin avoids Otto's syringe, and the two start fighting. But Otto eventually gets the upper hand and knocks him out. Natalie makes it upstairs and hides, while Otto looks for her around the house. Once he finds her, he pins her down and starts choking her. At that moment, Kevin comes up behind him and injects him with a sedative. Natalie then grabs the knife and stabs Otto in the chest until he finally dies. After everything they've been through, Kevin apologizes for not believing her, and the two hug each other. A short time later, the police arrive at the house. The movie then jumps ahead 1 month. Kevin and Natalie have adopted a new puppy, their marriage seems to be in a much better place, and they're finally moving out of the house. However, before the movie ends, the closet door slowly closes by itself, suggesting that whatever was happening in that house might not be over yet. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more movie recaps. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.